So, Steve.
Hey.
Mario and Sonic have been just at each other's necks for decades at this point. And I feel like everybody's just kind of wondering which one is truly better. And I just want to hear, what side of history you're on.
Ooh, that's tough. If we're talking about character, it's Sonic. If we're talking about the quality of the games, it's obviously Mario.
That's fair, but gun to your head right now, literally, oh my god, you gotta pick one. If you had to pick one right now, everything considered,
I'm gonna go Sonic. I like an underdog.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's fair. I grew up with a lot of Sonic, and I'm always down to see what the latest Sonic thing is. I'm always down. But I think Mario, yeah, but who cares about that guy as a guy?
He's like the world's oldest looking 25-year-old.
They've given him some character over the years, but as it stands, I think Sonic might be a little more interesting sometimes, but I'll never pass up a Mario game. Sonic games I can kind of take or leave. A good maybe a third of them, and then another third are pretty interesting, and then another third are pretty good. Great even. That's why I have you here today. I have a big list of randomized Sonic and Mario games. And I'm kind of wondering, who kind of comes out on top.
Oh boy.
So, I got this big list, and spin-offs are included. It's just kind of a big old hodgepodge of random junk. Random Sonic game, random Mario game. Battle them out. Which one comes out on top? And then whoever wins that argument, we then go down to the next thing on the other list. So let's say, Mario 3 wins in the battle against Sonic Pinball Party. Mario 3 then goes down to go up against Sonic Spinball, another pinball-related game. And then we see which one wins in that regard. So, Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, our first matchup here is Sonic Colors on the Wii versus the original Super Mario Brothers, 1985.
Oh, wow.
Which one wins here?
That's interesting because there's a debate to be had about historical relevance versus actual quality of gameplay. Because obviously Mario, the original Mario, is historically one of the most relevant games of all time. However, stacked up against decades and decades and decades of game development, iteration, and knowledge, I would say that Sonic Colors is probably the more entertaining game to play moment to moment.
Are you sure about that? Because I think it's okay. I think Sonic Colors is all right. I don't know. I mean, how many more times are you going to play Sonic Colors compared to the original?
That's fair. I'm probably not going to play it ever again. Do I think it's engaging? I played Colors Ultimate. That's fair. So that's something to think on, because I can beat Mario 1 in 20 minutes, but I'll play it again. I played through it on the Game & Watch recently when that came out. I played through all of Mario 1 again just for fun. You might have me changing my mind here. I think that while Sonic Colors benefits from all the experience developers have built up over the years, I think Mario 1 is probably more enduring.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic Colors is good. Sonic Colors is in this weird little funk right now.
Yeah, the sophomore slump.
Where it's just there's too many 2D sections. People don't like the story. People don't like this. People don't like that. And I think it's a good overall game. But in the grand scheme of things, I think I don't ever have to play it again. I feel like I don't like how Sonic controls in 2D. Mario in Super Mario Bros. 1, I have no problem with how he controls in 2D. It's fine. It's a good first outing. Forever lasting. I'm always going to go back to Super Mario Bros. 1. Sonic Colors, I'll probably go back to maybe 12 more times in my life, but, compared to Mario, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you got me on this one.
I'd give it to Super Mario Bros. 1.
Yeah.
So do you agree with that?
I agree. Mario 1.
So Mario goes and treks on, and now it's up against Sonic and Knuckles.
Ooh.
On the Sega Genesis. Now, keep in mind, this isn't Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but to be fair, you can maybe take into account the fact that this game can lock onto other games, but this is the latter half of Sonic 3. In my opinion, the lesser half of Sonic 3.
Agreed.
I think Sonic and Knuckles starts to, it's just not as strong as Sonic 3 is. When you combine them together, it's something else. But Sonic and Knuckles on its own, it's okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I agree with you in that Sonic and Knuckles by itself, if we're not including Sonic 3 locked onto it, then Sonic and Knuckles by itself is inferior, even in my mind, to Mario 1, because of the fact that, like you said, the stage design is pretty, comparatively speaking, uninspired, where Mario 1, I've never thought, oh boy, I just want to pick up just Sonic and Knuckles and play that again. Whenever I think of Sonic and Knuckles, I think of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And if that were the game we were talking about, then I would be on board with it trumping Mario 1, because I've probably replayed Sonic 3 and Knuckles tons and tons of times in my life.
I think that would be a huge problem this early on. If there was Sonic 3 and Knuckles this early on, that'd be a huge problem. It would just be nothing but Sonic 3 and Knuckles against these other games. I mean, you can be so productive with this game. There's so much you can do with it. You can log it onto Sonic 2, log it onto Sonic 1, and play Blue Sphere nonstop. You can log it onto Sonic 3, you can play it on its own. You can do so much with this game. It's really fun. But and as nice as Sonic and Knuckles is on its own as a game, you know, it's fine. It's pretty good. I feel like it's kind of in the lower tier of like classic Sonic on its own. By itself, it's kind of in that, you know, I'm not big into Sonic CD. Sonic 1 definitely has some growing pains, so I think it's a little more close to that. It's still good, but yeah. I think it's not nearly as good as like Sonic 2 or Sonic 3.
Agreed 100%. We're on the same page on this one. Yeah, I say Mario 1 takes this easy.
Okay, well, we move on. So Super Mario Bros. 1 goes up against, this is a little tricky, Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis on Game Boy Advance.
If I remember correctly, and it's been a long time since I even looked at Sonic Genesis on GBA, if I remember correctly, this was like a really bad port of Sonic for the GBA. Like, it wasn't good.
Oh, it's horrible.
Sonic 1, I would say, probably doesn't stand up against Mario 1 on the Genesis even. So I'm gonna say this is a slam dunk for Mario 1 to keep going.
That's surprising, because when we move on to the next game, it's Sonic 1. Just on the Genesis. Who wins here? Now, I think there's a debate to have, even though you would think so. I mean, Sonic 1 was the first game to really give Nintendo some major competition, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you in that respect. I was there when Sonic 1 launched. That was my birthday gift that year from my mom. So I got Sonic 1, and I was super hyped for it. And in the moment, I would have absolutely said that Sonic stomps Mario. It was definitely kind of a sea change in the platformer landscape back in the early 90s. However, when you take into account the history of both franchises, of both Mario and Sonic, I think that people can still point to Mario 1 and say, like, this is groundbreaking, it did so much right. Like, there are people who do whole breakdowns of stage design for Mario 1 on YouTube in 2023, whereas I don't see that conversation existing around the original Sonic. I see people commonly pointing to, like, Sonic 2 as the point where the series really found its legs. And then, you know, Sonic 3 is where it got refined and improved to the point that it was almost perfect. I would think that, again, like, taking the legacy of both of these games into account, I would think that as a fan of both, I more fondly look on Sonic 2 than I do Sonic 1. And I would probably, I would say Sonic 2 would beat Mario 1 for me, but I don't think Sonic 1 would. I think Sonic 1, there were so many obvious areas of improvement, whereas with Mario, it's just like, I mean, it defined what would eventually become Sonic, you know, years down the road.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of what made Sonic 1 stick out can pretty much entirely be pointed out in, like, the first level. Like, anything after that, like, it doesn't matter. Both in terms of, like, marketing, both in terms of, like, let's say, like, the audiences, what the audience took away from all of that. Terms of just, like, I don't know, like, nothing else matters in Sonic 1. Everything after Green Hill Zone is kind of cruddy in some way. I mean, there's some decent spots there, but it kind of falls apart after that first level. And I think it mainly kind of comes down to this game and its first level were so fast, so beautiful, so colorful. It showed off, like, wow, oh my god, like, you compared this to Mario 1, it's night and day. It's like, oh my god, why wouldn't you want to have this? Then you go into Marble Zone, and then you go into Labyrinth Zone, and then you go into Scrap Brain Zone, Act 3 specifically, which is just Labyrinth Zone again. And stuff like Spring Yard Zone is fine, Starlight Zone, it's fine, but it's just there's still a lot of annoyances in that game. For Mario 1, I just feel like it's challenging. It's like a very good difficulty curve, I think, in that game.
Right.
I think it's like I think there's a reason why that game changed everything, and I feel like even today you can play it and you can see it gradually getting more difficult. It's very much like, hey, that first world, it's kind of like, you're moving up till that last, world 8. And, like, there's not as much visual variety, though. Yeah. I will say that.
True.
The entirety of Mario 1 looks the damn same. So, I'll still give it to Mario 1, personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Like you said, I think that the beauty of Mario 1 is in its gradual difficulty curve, whereas Sonic tends to remain kind of flat, like in terms of difficulty. It's just the levels get almost frustratingly complex in their design past a certain point. And so it's just like, okay, you made the levels a little weirder to run through, but at the end of the day, like, the bosses don't get any harder. They don't, it just stays kind of the same.
Well, we have an interesting comparison here for the next one. It is Super Mario Brothers versus Team Sonic Racing.
Team Sonic Racing is such a good game.
Gun to your head, screaming at you, pick a game. What are you gravitating towards?
I feel like we're coasting on Legacy past a certain point, but I still have to say Mario 1. Like, I have played Team Sonic Racing and I've enjoyed it, but I don't play it nearly as much. I don't play Team Sonic Racing hardly ever.
That is fair, but I will give it this. I think Team Sonic Racing is a very solid racing game. I think it's pretty good for what it is. The problem is, it just, like, who cares?
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. Like, it's just like, you can have the coolest whatever racing game, but this just is kind of like, at the end of the day, Team Sonic Racing to me was always pretty much just, let's do a Sonic and Sega All-Stars racing game again, but just there's just not as much content there. There's not as much going on for it. You take out all the Sega characters. Okay, so you're left with Sonic characters, and what are you going to do in Team Sonic Racing with those Sonic characters? Just some really basic picks. Just some weird picks that are just kind of like, oh, here's Zavok. Everybody loves Zavok, right? And I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like they could have gone a little weirder with it. I think they could have had some more interesting picks. Great music. Great, good control, good everything like that. So I will give it this, like if you had to recommend somebody pick up any game, like let's say you go up to an average Joe right now and they're like, I'm looking for a video game to play. What would you recommend to them? Would you recommend Team Sonic Racing or the original Super Mario Brothers?
Oh man, that's hard because I always like to dig into what people like and try to figure out, like I try to customize it a little bit. I think telling somebody who doesn't already play video games to pick up the original Super Mario Brothers in 2023 is kind of a tough sell. Like, hey, look, here's this is probably what you conjure in your mind when you think of video games.
To be fair, I think it's a good starting point if you've never played a video game. Let's say they've dabbled, they know how to play video games, but they're just looking for the next thing to play.
Yeah, then I would probably say Team Sonic, to be honest. I mean, if I had to choose between these two, neither of these would enter the conversation in my mind outside of this, but if I was choosing between these two, I'd probably say Team Sonic because it's visually enticing, it's more engaging, it's a lesser version of Mario Kart if we're being honest with ourselves. And I think that the average person who doesn't consume video games all the time could have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I do agree. But at the end of the day, if we had to pick one...
Oh, Mario 1 is undeniably the better game. It's just the better game.
Wow.
It inspired a whole generation.
But we might move on to something a little more interesting here. Mario 1 versus Sonic 3.
Ooh.
I might have to give it to Sonic 3, personally.
I'm actually on board with Sonic 3. Like I said, so Sonic 3... going back to the Sonic 3 and Knuckles conversation we had just a little bit ago, Sonic 3 is the better half of Sonic and Knuckles. And unlike Sonic and Knuckles, I think Sonic 3 stands alone very well. Like, that is the game, like, when I got Origins, the first thing I played was Sonic 3 again. The soundtrack is really great. Like I said, they kind of honed 2D Sonic to perfection by Sonic 3. You had a save system finally. Getting the Blue Sphere stages, I love those. I love the zone design in Sonic 3. We got the introduction of Knuckles, even if he wasn't playable yet. Just introduced a lot to the series that ended up becoming integral to what it would become later on. So I would say that Sonic 3 takes all the lessons that Sega could have learned from Mario and actually made a product that at least improves on Mario's first outing.
Yeah, for sure. I was blown away when I played through Sonic 3 for the first time. I mean, I've played Sonic 3 throughout like my entire childhood via like the Sonic Mega Collection, but I never beat it until like a couple years ago. And that first time that I beat it, like just seeing how incredible all the ideas it employs are, and the fact that it really does, like it nails pretty much all of them. Like they truly set out to make this like the ultimate Sonic game, and they succeed. Well, they were going to succeed if it released as intended, but that was kind of a blessing in disguise because, you know, it made it into an incredibly unique situation where you could have Sonic and Knuckles and lock that on and do all other things with that. But I do think Sonic 3 just being, you know, those first few levels meant to really hook you in, really impress you. It is the better half. And just with all the power-ups in this game, the elemental shields, the Blue Sphere special stages are really fun and addictive to play through. Just really unique. The way they do the special stages in this game, I think, is like the best in the series. Just the fact that you got to find the big ring. Act as a save feature. All of this. I feel like Sonic 3 may eclipse Mario 1.
Yeah. I think it's easy for me to agree on that one. I think Mario 1 is fundamental to the development of games as a medium, but I think that Sonic 3, like put side by side, is the game that I would, like, at least 9 times out of 10 choose to play.
Damn, well, we have Sonic's first win, and it's going up against the next game on the Mario list. We got Sonic the Hedgehog 3 versus Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on Wii U. Which one reigns supreme here?
This is an easy one for me. I don't even like Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. So
wow, really?
Sonic 3 is an easy one. The Mario Tennis series outside of Aces has never really clicked with me.
Have you ever played tennis in real life?
I've played tennis once or twice, and it was an experience.
I think it's pretty fun. It's decently fun. Yeah, I think a video game portion though, that's when it's just like it starts to lose me. Like I think Mario Tennis to an extent is still like it's good, and I can enjoy it, but it's not it's not the first Mario sport I'm picking.
Yeah.
Which also does kind of really it saddens me that it seems to be the Mario sport that gets the most love. This is the one
right?
Nintendo just keeps on willing to pump out more of. Which Aces was good, like, you know, it was rocky at first, and it definitely made me not want to play it more, but, you know, seeing where it's at now, it has so many characters and a lot of stuff, and it has good gameplay at its core. But Mario Tennis Ultra Smash was the game that preceded Mario Tennis Aces on the Wii U, and it released in holiday of 2015. And yeah, they had nothing on this game. They didn't do anything with it.
Oh yeah,
they were just like, well, let's just put it out and let's just pretend we're going back to the basics on this one. You know, like we'll just pretend we're this is a throwback title. It was horrible. One of Nintendo's worst games.
Yeah, they were clearly trying to cut and run from the Wii U at that point, and they just had to get something out so that they could say they were still making games. Mario Tennis was that game.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking when you go back to it. I mean, there's stuff to do, but it's very basic. It's like, oh, rallying and the Mega Mushroom mode, that nothing much to it. It's just you grow big. So yeah, I'll say Sonic 3 kind of takes the cake for this one. Well, Sonic 3 moves on.
Yes.
To go up against a titan of the Mario franchise, New Super Mario Bros. U.
Oh boy.
On Wii U.
Man. So I don't get all the recent hate for the new Super Mario Brothers series that has kind of proliferated in the last year or so. Do I think they're particularly good games in the wider view of Mario? Not really. I don't think that they're the strongest Mario games, but I say this often about Nintendo stuff. Like the worst Mario game or the worst Zelda game is still better than like 95% of all games. So it's really hard to say like, oh, this is a bad game. But I will say this. I think that it doesn't quite have the same depth of character that Sonic 3 has. I think that Sonic 3 has a lot of personality and oozes, Sonic's specific like edgy 90s vibe in a way that I really enjoy. And I think that Mario, specifically New Super Mario Bros. U, doesn't quite have that. So yeah, I would say that Sonic 3 kind of edges it out because the gameplay in New Super Mario Bros. U is good, but I think it doesn't have that edge of personality that Sonic 3 has. And I'd put them roughly like very close to each other in terms of moment-to-moment gameplay.
Yeah, I think the new Super Mario Brothers series is mechanically very good. It's really hard to get a platformer much higher quality than like a new Super Mario Brothers game, but that's kind of like in terms of level design and in terms of level design, it's mostly just on how it functions. I think it's functionally very sound. But at the end of the day, like you kind of look at like how these levels are designed and it just gets so boring, especially compared to the first game on DS. When you look back at that first game on DS, they're doing some crazy stuff in that game. They're doing some wild stuff. And then you move on to like the Wii game and Mario, new Mario 2 on 3DS, and especially U. They kind of went back in terms of level design and just kind of make it just this very basic setup. But it's still fun to blast through. These games are still fun to just kind of like sit down, but it's kind of a mindless kind of fun. You're not really like going, wow, did you see? I don't remember a single damn time I ever said wow in New Super Mario Bros. U. Maybe the painting stage, but even then, I already saw that by the time that thing happened in the game, That was in, like, the first trailer, and that was the only time it happened. So, yeah, New Super Mario Bros. U, it's probably, like, a 7 out of 10 kind of game, Sonic 3, I think, is, like, a 9,
Yeah.
Like, it's up there. So, I think Sonic 3 takes the cake for this one.
Agreed.
Well, move on to another battle for the century, something that I've been waiting to see which one really reigns supreme here for years. At this point, it's Sonic the Hedgehog 3 versus Mario Sports Mix on Wii. Which one reigns supreme? Now, Sonic 3 only is Sonic 3. Mario Sports Mix has 4 different sports in the game.
Man, I have not thought about Mario Sports Mix.
Square Enix developed. It has Final Fantasy characters. So,
I was gonna say, isn't this one the Cactars in this one, or is that 3-on-3 Hoops for the DS?
Yeah, this is like a pseudo spiritual successor to Hoops 3-on-3. This one includes 3 other sports.
Back in the days of the Wii, I was pretty limited on funds, and so getting new games was a luxury. And Mario Sports Mix didn't quite make that cut for me. Blasphemy,
Why?
I know.
Why?
I just couldn't stack it up against the likes of Galaxy 1 and 2.
This came out like a year after that game. I was
still broke.
Couldn't save up for a year. I think it's worth saving up for.
I think there's some cool stuff. Like, you had hockey in this, and I know a lot of fans have wanted Mario Hockey. Like, that's something that I've heard a lot from, but this is not a game that I chose to invest myself in, and so I'm just gonna have to say, based on that alone, Sonic 3 takes it for me. I mean, never mind the bigger reasons, but
okay, all right.
I know I'm being very persuasive.
Doesn't mean I agree with you. It's mostly just down to I'll just let it happen. Sports Mix does not move on. And we move over to Sonic 3 versus 3D World.
Oh, man. 3D World angers me. It is one of the Mario games that I like the least because 3D Land made a lot of sense. The existence of 3D Land, I understood why it was there. The 3DS, glassesless 3D Land makes a whole lot of sense. Taking that idea, lifting it and putting it on the Wii U with no additional gimmick other than like the double cherry. It boggled the mind that was like the tentpole Mario game we got that year, and that it was kind of at the time pushed as like on par with like a AAA Mario offering. Not a bad game, horribly positioned and on the wrong hardware. I think that it's a fun multiplayer, experience, but there's no way it stands up to something as iconic as Sonic 3 for me. This is solidly a B tier Mario game for me.
Man, I mean, like, if we're talking the Switch version, I can't sing the praises of enough. I feel like that may be one of the best games you could potentially buy on Switch. On Wii U, this is one of the best games you could buy on Wii U, but at the time of its release, yeah, like you were saying, it was definitely a hard pill to swallow for a bit. And then, it became like, oh my god, 10 out of 10s across the board. Have you seen Mario 3D World, the best game of all time? I feel like us Nintendo fans were very much hoping, pleading that this was going to be the game that saved the Wii U. It was like, oh my god, Nintendo did it. They pulled through. They made the 10 out of 10 Mario game, and now everybody's going to have to buy this console. And didn't really happen. And I wouldn't consider this game to be a 10 out of 10, but I do think it's really good. I think it's a good game, and especially if we're talking about the Switch version, with its faster speed, and it just kind of feels like they polished a couple of things up there, and especially, it's included with Bowser's Fury. I mean, like, if you give me... Oh, man, that's tricky. I mean, why do you think Sonic 3... wins in this argument?
So I think that Sonic 3, if you take the respective franchises, Sonic and Mario, Sonic 3 is in the top 5 of all games ever released within that franchise. I think that Sonic 3 was influential to its respective franchise the same way Mario 1 was to the whole of gaming. But I think for me, the difference here is that I think that 3D World represents a bigger disparity between the top games within Mario versus the top games within Sonic and Sonic 3. Like, I probably wouldn't put 3D World in like the 5 best Mario games ever made. I don't think that makes it a bad game. I just don't think it makes it... I think, again, when presented with the fundamental gun to your head question, like, do you want to replay 3D World or Sonic 3? I'm choosing Sonic 3. And it's very little hesitation on my part. I enjoy 3D World every time I pick it up, and I do think the Switch version is markedly much better than the Wii U version. But I still think that I go for the Sonic 3 cartridge every time.
Okay, replace the gun to your head question with a shotgun to your head. Like, it's a bigger deal. Are you still picking Sonic 3?
Man, I have to say, I still think I am. There's a huge age difference here, right? So I was there, like, when Sonic 3 came out. I had a pre-order for this.
Nah, listen, I understand. I understand. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of, like... Okay, well, I will agree. Like, I think, like, Sonic 3 is definitely, like, top 5 Sonic games kind of thing. Mario 3D World, I would say, is probably maybe top 10, more than likely definitely in top 15.
I could agree with that.
Does that mean, like, Sonic 3 is undoubtedly the better game, or is it just, like, one of the best Sonic games compared to a B-tier Mario, Like, it's just something I'm wondering. In the grand scheme of quality, where does it lie? Because, Sonic 3, it's pretty short.
It is short.
5 zones, basically, and it's like Mario 3D World, there's a good amount of content there, and I don't really think it ever gets super, like, wow, I don't want this much content.
I think for the sake that choosing Sonic 3 to die on weakens my argument for Sonic 3 and Knuckles later on, I'm going to go ahead and say that 3D World can take it, because I agree with you that there's much, much more content, and I do appreciate the multiplayer experience in 3D World, which is something Sonic 3 doesn't really offer.
Well, 3D World is a game that, like, you've seen so many people, like, use it as an example for, like, premier level design, Like, it's just like, boom, this is how you design a stage. I think 3D World deserves some credit. I think it deserves some credit, and I'm willing to give it this shot.
That's fair.
Mainly because the next game is Sonic Mania, so that's a little tricky.
Oh man, that's
a hard one.
That is brutally difficult. Because again, I mean, if we're going back to the content argument, 3D World wins in terms of content, like just sheer breadth of content.
Yeah, but I think Sonic Mania has more than enough to keep you busy. That's the thing. I think Sonic 3 is really short.
That's
Sonic
true.
Mania, I mean, you got a lot of stuff you can do in that game.
I think Mania, man, that's a hard one for me to to pass up. That is in probably my personal top 10 favorite games ever made.
Oh, it's up there for me. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it might be winning this argument. I don't know.
I think so, because if I go back to when I was doing my Game of the Year discussions, I picked Sonic Mania in 2017, which was like one of the best years for gaming in general. We're talking the year that we got Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, and I still went for Sonic Mania. So I would have to say that Sonic Mania takes this one for me, and due in no small part to the fact that it was the revival of Sonic that we had all been hoping for a very long time at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sonic Mania just has quite a lot going for it, and I think any problem it has, I think, mainly comes down to, like, okay, so it's a retread of a lot of different ideas and, like, zones and all that, but you can make that argument for 3D World. You know, like, it's just, like, not a lot is super new here. 3D World still has a lot of great new ideas and cool new enemies, cool new concepts, cool new power-ups, all of that, but I think they're both guilty of, kind of, taken from that nostalgia, taken from previous things in their respective series. Anything else you can maybe complain about with Sonic Mania, maybe like how, general complaints that you usually hear about, like, classic Sonic, how it's like, oh, well, like, it's like, why isn't he on the far left side of the screen? Because, like, you can't see what you're doing. You can make the same arguments about Mario 3D World. That thing has a dumb camera when it comes to multiplayer.
Oh, yeah.
And also, like you were saying, like, the original design for this game was designed for a stereoscopic 3D screen with 3D land, and you bring it on a console with no 3D, so it's just like you have depth perception issues. So I feel like they both have similar, like, not similar downsides, but I think they both have kind of equal downsides in that way. But I think Sonic Mania elicits so much more joy.
Yes.
I think there's a lot more joy that comes from Sonic Mania, even these days. Just everything that happens in that game. I think Sonic Mania takes the cake here.
Yeah, I agree. It's an easy yes for me on that one.
Well, we have a bit of a tricky combination here, because now we have Sonic Mania versus Super Mario 64.
Oh man, Mario 64 is to 3D as Mario 1 was to 2D. I still have my copy of Mario 64 like behind me on a shelf back here. I don't have Sonic Mania up in my room behind me. So I remember that feeling of coming home in 1997, finding my package from UPS that had the N64 and the copy of Mario 64 that I did yard work for everyone in my neighborhood for months to save up for. And just that feeling of like, wow, I don't know how anything works, and just spending hours and hours and hours figuring it out. And I don't think there's a feeling that one could easily replicate that describes like how it feels to go from playing 2D games for a huge chunk of your life solely, and then getting your first 3D game and having it be something the caliber of Mario 64. I have to say, as much as I mentioned that Sonic Mania is in my top probably 10 games of all time, I would put Mario 64 probably in my top 3. So for me, I'd have to say it's Mario 64, but it's a struggle, because I think Sonic Mania, like you said, evokes those really great feelings of nostalgia and joy, whereas Mario 64, like, I can still remember kind of the weird tightness in my chest I felt when I played it for the first time, that overwhelming sense of hype that I got when I first booted that game up.
Oof. I mean, like, both of these games are kind of endlessly replayable, you know?
Yeah.
There's never going to be really a moment that you're going to be, like, kind of sick of playing Sonic Mania or sick of playing Mario 64 again. And I think Mario 64 has more problems than Sonic Mania, though.
That's
if we're
fair.
looking at it critically, I feel like there are more problems with 64 than Mania. But at the end of the day, I feel like Sonic Mania, comparing Sonic Mania to Mario 64, I mean, Sonic Mania does depend very much on, like, the past, where Mario 64 was looking towards the future, and I think we're always kind of, like, begging for more games kind of like Mario 64, you know? Like, we always want more of, like, these 3D platformers with these large open worlds that invoke that same feeling we all had when we played Mario 64 for the first time. I think it has to go with Mario 64 for this one. I mean, it's a little rough. Well, I mean, I think this is going to be an easy win for Sonic. There's going to be Sonic Advance versus Super Mario 64. Which one wins?
It's good, but it didn't Yeah, no. There's no debate in my mind. Mario 64 takes this one easily. We're talking about one of the most influential games ever created against a really solid Game Boy Advance platformer, but still a Game Boy Advance platformer.
They both have the system names in their title, so this might be a more apt comparison than we initially thought. It's hard to really be like, oh man, this, like, okay, when you look at, like, where does this lie in the giant pantheon of Sonic games? Like if Sonic Mania and 3 is in, like, top 10, top 5 or so.
I would say you'd have to extend it to top 25 to really get it in there.
I was gonna say top 20.
I could agree with that. Like, I think it's definitely of a lower quality. But again, we're talking about games where they're really good. I just think that Sonic Advance doesn't really enter the conversation often. That's not because it's a bad game necessarily, but it's a product of its time.
Yeah, oh, man, that's strange to say, like, Sonic Advance is a product of its time, but Super Mario 64 is timeless, you know? Because I feel like Sonic Advance still holds up today, but it does feel kind of like this thing that, like, even just the name, which I know Mario 64 still has that problem, but it just feels very much like, yep, this is Sonic for Game Boy Advance, and then you move on to Sonic Rush, and then you move on. Like, it doesn't feel, and especially because there was Sonic Advance 1, Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Advance 3, it doesn't feel like a series of games that were really ever meant to leave the Game Boy Advance generation.
Right.
Which is strange because they still hold up as games, you know? But I don't know. There's something about, like, the aura surrounding Sonic Advance that just kind of makes it feel like this isn't relevant anymore, and I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we got, what was it? They ported a very similar game to the N-Gage, too, like using the same sprite work.
Sonic N, Sonic with an N.
It feels the same way. Like, it's just kind of, you know, they worked within the confines of what the hardware could do. I think there were more creative ways to put games on GBA that made them easy to exist outside of that ecosystem. You look at Minish Cap, you look at stuff like that, and those are games that I'll play, you know, on Switch Online right now, right? Whereas Sonic felt very much like it was destined for that hardware and was just never going to leave.
I agree with that, but I'm never going to say it, like, truthfully. Like, I'm never going to write it down and be like, yep, this is what happened, you know? But you just feel it, you know? It's an emotional feeling about this game. Or I think it's good. But I think Mario 64 is much more everlasting, you know?
Agreed.
Sonic Advance feels a little more like, you know, it happened at that time, and there's not as much of a reason to pick it up these days unless you kind of want to just take a look back at it. Mario 64 just is obviously more of like, this is a must-play game for anybody of any age, of any generation, all of that. I think we move on to Mario 64 versus Sonic Riders.
I was just playing the Connect free patch for Sonic Free Riders.
Oh, wow. And how was that? I didn't even know there was a Connect free patch for that game.
It is a game. I can see why, you know, again, we're talking about games that feel like they're tethered to the hardware they were originally released for. And clearly, Sonic Free Riders is one of those. You know, the Sonic spin-offs have never really hit for me, all the way going back to, what was the Sonic Party game? Sonic Shuffle. You know, that was kind of the point at which I was like, all right, maybe I just rent or borrow these Sonic spin-offs before I plop down my $60. And Sonic Riders is no exception to that. This came out during an era where, I mean, the Sonic games themselves, the mainline Sonic games, were kind of struggling. So anything that didn't even have the mainline Sonic name was almost guaranteed to not be a good time. I'm sure there's a contingent of folks who love Sonic Riders out there, but it's not me. And even if I loved it, it would be really hard to pit it against something like Mario 64.
Yeah, you know, I'll definitely say it. I hate Sonic Riders. Well, I don't hate Sonic Riders. I hate Zero Gravity, the sequel to it. I grew up with that game, and I hate it. It was not good. I did not understand it, and I used the motion controls for that. And I went back to try Sonic Riders. It's a weirdly complicated racing game. Like, it just feels overly complicated. There's so many elements to it that you gotta learn it. And I'm just like, at this point, why do I want to learn Sonic Riders, man? Like, it's just like, you're gonna end up playing it, and you're just gonna be like, you're just gonna go back to any other kart racer, even though this isn't Kart Racer, and I'll give it that. It's very unique, but like, I'm like, yeah, get that out of here. It's Mario 64 versus Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the combined efforts.
Had this come up earlier, I think Sonic 3 and Knuckles would have been a shoo-in for me. Sonic 3 and Knuckles would have handily beat the last few Mario games, I think. that we discussed. But now we're up against, again, what is one of my favorite games of all time in Mario 64. My gut just says, give it to Mario.
Wow.
And that's tough because
Wow.
this is like choosing between my children at this point. This is like two games that I love with my whole heart, and I can't imagine a world in which I have to choose one.
That is fair, and I understand, and I sympathize with that. I mean, you know, we talked about Sonic and Knuckles is the lesser half of Sonic 3.
Right.
I think Mario 64 has a similar problem. I think when you get to that last half of that game, you go to that upper castle, there's some stinky stages in there. Like, who wants to play some of those? Like, when I get to that upper castle, I'm just like, I don't want to do any of this. Like, this is just lame. I mean, like, they're still fine stages, but you have, like, Rainbow Ride, Tick-Tock Clock, and, like, I like them. But at the same time, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to go through this. This feels like work. I don't really know if Sonic 3 Knuckles ever felt like work.
I imported my N64 and Super Mario 64. And I had that kind of fervor for those games that you can only have when you're a teenager, right? When you have nothing better to do with your time other than play video games. I agree with you that I kind of actively avoided completing Tick-Tock Clock and Rainbow Ride because I just didn't want to go through the labor of getting all the stars in those stages.
I mean, I could go on, man. I mean, Wet Dry World, I don't want to deal
Wet
with that
Dry World
right now.
sucks. I will give you that.
There's a lot of stuff that just, I mean, like, Mario 64 is still incredible, but, like, it has some stinkers in there. And I do think Sonic 3 and Knuckles, even though Sonic and Knuckles, that portion isn't as good, you know, I think Sonic 3 does kind of, like, not dip in quality, it's just more so, like, the levels aren't just as inspired near the end as they were at the beginning. Mario 64 has more downsides, but I think it did more for the overall. It's more like, wow, this is an evolution. The fact that it hit it out of the park on the first try is incredible. Listen, I will say, Sonic 3 and Knuckles may be kind of the definitive, like one of the definitive games of the 16-bit era. You know, like when you look at that game as a whole, that game has level design and ideas on par with 2D platformers you see these days. There is stuff they do in that game that is like unbelievably ambitious and it works well. Mario 64, I mean it does, but I feel like it has a couple more little stinky elements to it.
I can get that.
And I would probably pick Mario 64 as well, but I'm just trying to give Mario Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I'm trying to make it make sense in my head. A world where Sonic 3 and Knuckles wins.
For me, Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a total package, as an additive package, is still a better game combined. However, I think that some of that is just the coolness of the technology in an era before DLC existed to get like an update to a game that you already had.
Oh, even without, I mean, how cool is DLC at the end of the day? I think the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on technology is overall still way cooler, you know?
No, I
It's
agree.
a physical thing.
I think that there's definitely an argument to be made, but I think leaning back on my old, you know, on Super Mario Brothers 1 from the beginning of this, you know, Sonic and Knuckles didn't revolutionize the industry in the same way that Mario 1 did, even though I think it's a better game than Mario 1. However, I think Mario 64, it changed the business plans of literally everybody in the game space in one fell swoop. Like, everybody that was working on stuff was like, okay, we need to make 3D games now. More importantly than that, I think I've played through Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you know, probably a handful of times in my life. I can't begin to tell you the dozens of times I've played through Mario 64. Like, that is my, over the holidays, I've got downtime, I will just start up a new save file on Mario 64 and go all the way through it again. And while it definitely has its dips and its moments where it's not as good, I can't get over that feeling of like that dopamine hit I get when I'm running through Bob Battlefield. You know, it feels new all over again every time I play it.
I mean, I fully agree with you, but this is just sad for Sonic.
It is. It is.
I feel like this might have been its last chance. Well, I mean, you can try Mario 64 versus Sonic Forces. Which one reigns supreme?
No. I'm so sorry, Sonic. That is... I mean, Sonic Forces is a game.
It works. Probably a little more polished than Mario 64 overall, maybe.
Yeah, it's debatable, right? Like, it's still debatable.
I mean, Mario 64 has more glitches, I think. There's more stuff that goes wrong in that game.
Probably.
And Sonic Forces has Super Sonic for free DLC. So that is something Mario 64 does not have.
There is no Supersonic in Mario 64, you're right.
Sonic Forces is pretty crummy. It's a pretty crummy game.
Yeah.
It's something where, like, when that game came out, I think it was, man, I mean, like, I remember when that game got revealed in 2016. That was, like, during this big lull for Nintendo fan. Like, you know, like, it's always fun to be up to date with the Nintendo news, and even if you're not going to play one of the games that comes out, it's fun to see, like, what's coming out and what people think about it. And 2016 was just a nothing year. Everybody was just waiting for NX, NX, NX. And, you know, kind of a glimmer of hope was in that summer of 2016, even though this wasn't, you know, Nintendo, it was Sega, but there was still an NX announcement in there. But, you know, they announced Sonic Mania, and then at the very end, they announced, like, Project Sonic 2017, and they show that NX logo at the end. They show Classic Sonic is back, which was weird as hell. Yeah. Everybody was still like, what's the point of that? But that was really exciting, and especially hearing that, like, oh my god, it's gonna be another Sonic Generations. At least in terms of, like, hey, the boost formula is back and all of this. It's what we wanted after Generations. And this game came out, and, like, my god, it's just a steaming pile of just nothing. There is nothing to this, both in terms of just, like, anything it does, the level designs, the gimmicks it has. Like, man, this game is just bad. And not in, like, a bad way where it's like, oh my god, look, haha, point and laugh. Like, no, it's just bad.
It was rough. So I said earlier that, you know, within the realm of these games, you know, a bad game is usually better than most games. But Sonic Forces is the exception to that. Like, it is just straight up a bad game when compared to most games. I couldn't get through more than 15 minutes of this stuff. Sega sent me a Switch copy, and I wish they hadn't.
Whoa, come on. It's only like 2 hours long.
Oh, I know.
It's so easy to get through. You just keep holding forward.
That is one of those things that I have promised I will eventually do for our audience as a punishment at some point. Like, I'll play through that game and give an honest take on it.
It's fine. Here's why it's so bad. Even as a punishment, I don't think it's worthy. It's gonna be a disappointing punishment. Like, you want a punishment that's gonna, like, scar you, you know? I don't know if this is gonna scar you. I think it's gonna bore you to death, you know? Like, it's just lame. And it's just like, I don't know, man. At least something like a Sonic 06, a Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. There's like humor you can pull out of those games. Those games are so glitchy or so poorly designed that you can kind of, and you can also maybe see, like, where they went wrong and how they could have been better, and you can kind of elicit some joy out of them. Sonic Forces, it's really hard to elicit joy out of this. It's really hard to find anything, even like jokes people have made about this game, where it's just like, whatever, Knuckles saying, like, nothing's good about this vector, that's why it's called war. It's just like, I've just seen that so many times at this point, and that's like one of the only, like, silly, stupid parts of this game that's like, yo, you see that? That was dumb. That's all this game has, and even then, like, I'm done with that joke. It's like, I'm like, yeah, that happened. This game is stupid. This is a stupid-ass game. I don't like this game. What wins? What wins here?
Oh, man, clearly Sonic.
All right. Sonic Forces versus Super Mario Galaxy. What wins here?
Damn! We really moved on. Yeah. I'm gonna give it to Galaxy, surprisingly enough. I don't know why after the rousing argument we gave for Sonic Forces, but
all right, I'll take that. Mario Galaxy is my favorite game of all time. I love Mario Galaxy. That might show my age, you know. It might show my age being a dumb little 12-year-old or something, but you know.
I actually would say that Mario Galaxy, despite how much I love Odyssey, is my favorite Mario game ever. I think that it has the most unique take on the Mario series to date. Like, I love that they did a AAA game that wasn't afraid to get a little bit weird. It was Nintendo still being eager to experiment with the character, and then they kind of reeled that back in for the Wii U. You know, we got very safe games. And so I think that Galaxy and Galaxy 2, just, I love the core mechanic around them, the gravity shenanigans. Like, it's such a good series. And I truly, still to this day, wish we'd get a Galaxy 3.
Yeah, well, Mario Galaxy is my favorite game for a reason. I've pondered about this for decades. I think Mario Galaxy is like this perfect evolution of 3D Mario. Like, it just felt so exciting at the time. I just think it hit all the notes on just feeling like, if you were going to end the Mario series with a game, I think this would have been the game to end it. This felt like that you could have ended it here. And it would have felt like, damn, we really made it that far, didn't we? Like, It's just like the visuals of this game, it still looks beautiful. Like just the epic orchestra and just the idea, the concept just feels so ultimate. It just feels like you put Mario in space, culmination of everything Mario was and is going to be all in one game. So I'll give it to Mario Galaxy here. I think it beats Sonic Forces. Well, we move on to Mario Galaxy versus Sonic Generations. Now, this is a little tricky because I think Sonic Generations is lovely. Ooh. I think this is a wonderful game.
It is a wonderful game. I'm a huge 16-bit or classic or fat Sonic stand, however you want to say it.
So you get them both. You get them both here.
Yeah.
May not be in the exact way you want it, but keep in mind, you do get a copy of Sonic 1 with Sonic Generations. When you beat the game, you unlock Sonic 1, so it's pretty much like Sonic 1 and Sonic Generations versus Mario Galaxy.
That's true. That is true. But the debate that you have here is nostalgia versus innovation, right? Like you have something that leans on your love of something long past, and then something that takes something you love and does something brand new with it. And I find that if you're talking about Sonic and nostalgia, Mania carries that a lot further for me than Generations does, because it captures Sonic in the way that I want to remember him. Whereas Galaxy, I think, takes something I love in Mario and takes it somewhere brand new. It's so hard for me to put games above Galaxy. It's not my personal favorite game of all time, but I agree with you that it's way up. It's my favorite Mario game, and so that makes it really hard for me to put anything above it, because I don't know that there's a Sonic game for me that sits above Galaxy in my mind.
I liked you saying Sonic Mania was how you wanted to remember Sonic. It just made it sound like he's dead in Sonic Generations is like this disgusting photo that you accidentally took of him like puking or something. Like, I don't want to remember him like that. Like, let's just try to forget this.
Right?
Sonic Generations in 2011 was so cool.
It was.
That was like, oh my god. And even then, you play it these days, it's a very high quality game in my opinion. I think it's like, there's a lot to do in it. It's a short game, but I think there's a lot of content there that's fun to replay. And, a lot of cool missions. To be fair, Sonic Generations did a good job of kind of like refining what like Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors did, and just kind of making like this really exciting, like, like if it was, I don't think Sonic Generations coasts along on nostalgia. I think it's a fun game in its own right, like you replace everything. If those stages didn't exist prior, I think it would have been still super fun, because you go to like the stages after like the 16-bit and the Dreamcast era, and you just play the stage like Crisis City in this game. Like, there was nobody nostalgic for that when Generations came out.
That's fair.
But I still think it was a great stage. And the same with a Rooftop Run and Planet Wisp. Well, Planet Wisp was not the greatest in Generations. But, like, I don't think Sonic Generations' appeal is 100% due to nostalgia. I think that's a cool gimmick of it, but I don't know. Mario Galaxy is my favorite game of all time, but if I pick Sonic Generations, it makes it more interesting, So I'm not sure.
For the sake of keeping the debate lively, let's agree to disingenuously nominate Sonic Generations. I think Sonic Generations, for the record, fantastic game. Do I think that it edges out Galaxy? No, but I understand that Galaxy may just run the table if we keep going. So I'm going to put up Sonic Generations because of my love of Fat Sonic, and because I love Sonic as a character, as I said in the beginning, more than I like Mario.
Yeah, I think Generations is beautiful. I think it has an amazing soundtrack. As amazing as Galaxy soundtrack, I will say this: I think Sonic Generations has a soundtrack I'd rather listen to.
Agreed.
Because Mario Galaxy, everybody like. This is a bit of a, and this is my favorite game of all time, so I can say this. It's like complaining about like a pet of yours or something. Like, I love this little guy, but like, man, I don't like it when he does this. Mario Galaxy's soundtrack, I think, is a little overrated, because I think it's really honing in on those orchestral amazing pieces. If you listen to the other half of the soundtrack, it's a bunch of digital boops and bops. Like it's a
That's
bunch
true.
of like pretty unremarkable stuff. Like, the melodies are fine, but like just those handful of tracks that are fully orchestrated, they definitely do like kind of like you just make you kind of forget about all the other ones. I think Mario Galaxy 2 is where the soundtrack became like fully like, wow, this is incredible. Like basically the whole thing is crazy. Sonic Generations has like a crazy soundtrack. The whole thing, it's wild.
Yeah.
So I'll give it to Sonic Generations just to make it more fun.
There we go.
It's down to Mario Maker versus Sonic Generations. Super Mario Maker 1.
Oh my gosh.
This is a little funny. This is funny. This is weird. I mean, Mario Maker 1 is better than Mario Maker 2 in my opinion. Not from a content perspective, but I think making the levels, like I think obviously half of this game is making the levels, and I think so much of the appeal of Mario Maker was the fact that anybody can do this, and it's like, wow, making levels is like a game of itself. It's just fun.
Much like Sonic Advance, it's clearly a game that was purpose-built for the hardware.
Just like Sonic Advance, it's a perfect comparison.
What's difficult for me is that Mario Maker 1, I don't find to be super enjoyable to play. Like I enjoy making levels here and there, but I'm much more of a consumer of stages. And then when I go to navigate the wasteland that is stage design, like, you know, I find like the most popular ones are often ones that require little to no skill to complete. They're like auto runners, or they just play a cool song, like someone showing, which is cool. I admire the creativity, but it doesn't make for an engaging gameplay experience for me. Like, I don't have fun when I'm playing it. I think that Mario Maker 1 had a bunch of cool stuff. The amiibo outfits, I truly miss. I think they were really cool. I wish they'd all come back. You know, there was potential there to be able to play as, like, Mega Man in a Mario level. I thought that was always really a cool idea
Sonic,
that they had.
And Sonic.
We technically had a Sonic.
I could have put this
game
on the Sonic side, yeah. It's Sonic versus Sonic here.
Exactly. And I'm certain that Green Hill Zone was recreated as faithfully as possible by thousands of people on Mario Maker 1. But I have to say, like, Generations actually had gameplay that I enjoyed to play every time I turned it on. It wasn't like a roll of the dice if I was going to have a good time or not when I played that game. And for that reason, I have to give it to Sonic Generations.
Yeah, I think Mario Maker is a game where it's like, the potential is way more exciting than when you actually get your hands on it. At least for me, you know, it's something where it's just like, oh my god, endless Mario levels. But then when you don't have that core campaign stringing them along, it kind of becomes like you know, like isn't like you know, you don't. I just don't play the Mario Maker games as much as I think I will. I still play them a lot. But I just didn't play them as much as I thought I would with the idea of infinite Mario stages, because so many of them are just like, they're nothing. There's nothing to them. And you have to find them. You have to pull them out. The making element here is incredible. The amiibo costumes, out of this world. I think overall, like as a thing to buy, I think Mario Maker is probably better. But I think as a game, as a video game experience, I think Sonic Generations is probably like just a lot more refined, you know? Like, you don't have to search out for the good levels. They're right there in front of you.
Yep.
So, I think Sonic Generations takes the cake. We'll move on to Sonic Generations versus Mario Pinball Land on the Game Boy Advance. Which one
Oh man,
is the better game?
I wish we had somehow pigeonholed ourselves into Spinball versus Mario Pinball.
That would be pretty crazy. I mean, we could just try to just say Mario Pinball Land wins until we get to Spinball whenever that shows up. I mean, Mario Pinball Land is generally labeled one of the worst Mario games.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, it is.
I mean, like it's not the worst, but I think it's definitely like top 20 worst, maybe top 30, you know?
I would agree that at best, in your most optimistic view, Mario Pinball is a middling as hell Mario game. Whereas Generations is a higher tier Sonic game. And again, I think that it's one of those situations where you've got what is ostensibly a bad game pitted against a good game. I still go back and play Generations. I played maybe a little bit of Mario Pinball off of a friend's Kart a long time ago. I was like, yeah, I don't need to know more about this. and that was it for me. I've never gone back to that game. So for me, it's an easy win for Generations.
Well, Mario Pinball Land, it just kind of feels like Nintendo was just they weren't satisfied with just a basic Mario Pinball game. They had to make it just stupid. They had to turn Mario into the ball. They had to make it so then like, oh man, it's almost like it's a Mario game, but it's pinball. Like, just do something like, Metroid Prime Pinball, you can do that because Samus already turns into a ball. You can do this with Sonic. Mario, it doesn't work. So at that point, you might as well just make like a typical pinball board and just make some cool, like really fun Mario, like whatever theme, almost like you're looking down at an actual pinball machine. Instead, it has to be like this weird organic thing where it's like, oh, he's just in pinball land now. And I'm just like, it would have been so much better if it was literally like a Zen pinball kind of thing,
right?
Where it's just like, yeah, it's just pinball, and you got a really cool Mario design on the board, and cool pipes and stuff, and like whatever, just all this stuff.
Right. I was gonna say we have so many. I think there's a handful of like Mario pinball machines that are officially licensed that exist, and you could have just put those on a cart and let people play them. I would have liked that.
But Nintendo just had to sniff their own ass here. They were just like, we're really creative. We're really creative, so we gotta do this. Yeah, I think Generations wins this one, but maybe not for this one because Sonic Generations versus Yoshi's Crafted World on Nintendo Switch. Which one is superior? Ooh. I will say, I've beaten Generations. I have yet to beat Yoshi's Crafted World, mainly because I stopped giving a shit.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I got Crafted World thinking that I loved Woolly World on Wii U. I thought that was a great game.
Love it. Amazing.
Yeah. So Crafted World was bought on the goodwill of that game alone. And I was very hyped. My kids were much younger than they are now. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. A game I can play with my kids. My kids didn't even like Crafted World. Like, we couldn't hang in with it. Because I was salty about having spent the $60 for it or whatever they were charging for that one. I tried to play through more of it alone. And I just couldn't. I couldn't even hang in with it. I think I got through 2 worlds or something, and I just gave up. I was like, this game is just not it, which is really disappointing because I love the aesthetic. Visually, I think it's delightful, but the gameplay just isn't there, and I think that's what... there's another easy one for Sonic for me because Yoshi's Crafted World just isn't good.
I just kind of would have preferred if they just did a port of Woolly World or just did Woolly World 2, and it was basically just the same thing, but with new levels, maybe slightly updated visuals, visual style. Because I will say, I like how this game is, everything feels a lot more organic, like it was actually like placed in a room, I guess. Where Woolly World is kind of like just like, everything's made of yarn, but it's pretty much like, I don't know, it's just like, oh, there's a field. It's just a big ass ball of yarn. Oh, there's mountains. It's just a big ass ball of yarn. And, like it was just like, everything's made out of yarn, but I think this one had cooler visuals in the sense of the world design. I think it was like, oh, let's actually kind of come up with interesting uses of these arts and crafts and turn them into like these worlds. But I think Woolly World is a little more visually pleasing because the Yoshi model in Crafted World is stupid. I don't like it. It just looks like Yoshi with carpet.
Yep, I don't love
with
it.
Carpet on his skin. And I think it's stupid. If you just put the Woolly World model in there, I think it would have looked a lot better. But whatever. The game is fine. It's fine. It's just boring.
Yeah.
And like I appreciate the new ideas that they had here. I appreciate that they didn't want to just do another 2D Yoshi game. They wanted to try something a little new with like the perspective and all of that. I can appreciate that. I appreciate a lot about this game. I just think it's boring. Like I think it's just a step back from Woolly World in every way. And I would much rather play Generations right now.
Yep.
Well, Sonic Generations versus Super Mario World. Okay.
Oh.
This is a little tricky.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one.
So I will say I grew up with Mario World. That was a game that I grew up with. So I have nostalgia for that. But I keep flip flopping between this and like a Mario 3. Which one is better? And I'm not sure. Sometimes it depends on when I wake up in the morning. Like it depends on what I'm feeling. So. And I'm trying to think if I prefer this or if I don't, because I think that'll help me figure out if I'd rather play this than Sonic Generations. I don't know.
That's tough for me. Yeah, Super Mario World is an interesting one in my history because I got a Super NES long after Mario World came out, and so my dad bought me a Super NES with Populous, and that felt like a kick in the teeth. to an 11-year-old Steve. But I was like, what is this game? But I ended up getting Mario World after Mario 64. I went back and like rented it over one summer and played it to death and loved it. But I think that I prefer Mario 3. And I don't know if that's because I got Mario 3 right, the Christmas that game came out. Or if it's just because I think it's overall a better game. I have huge love for both of these games. Super Mario World for me, though, is pretty foundational to kind of what would become the 16-bit platformer genre, but at the same time, I don't have any nostalgia for it. Like, I play it and I can appreciate it, but I think that I actually prefer Generations. It just, for me, is a game that holds a bit more, and maybe that's because I came up with Sonic versus Mario.
I can definitely see that. I think Mario World, the more I think about it, if I'd rather play Mario World or Mario 3, I think I get a little more joy. I mean, I grew up with Mario 3 too. We had an NES at my grandma's house, and I would play Mario 3 there. And I feel like I probably just have a bit more of a fondness towards Mario 3. Mario World just kind of feels like, it doesn't really feel like this ginormous step up, and I know it was for many people, but it doesn't feel like this ginormous step up from Mario 3. In fact, it feels like a downgrade in some ways, not a ton, and I don't think it's a downgrade overall. I don't know. It feels like a variant of Mario 3 with more colorful, more detailed graphics. And that's kind of like, like it doesn't really feel like this, like, oh my god, it's Mario 3 but more. It feels like a different kind of, like it's just doing something new and different with Mario, but it doesn't feel like this huge leap forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now, I'd probably be a little more inclined to pick up Generations again. Mario World has had its time. I feel like I'll pick Generations, just to keep things a little spicier, That brings us to Sonic Generations versus the original New Super Mario Brothers.
Ooh.
I think I'd pick New Super Mario Brothers, man. I mean, like, that has a lot of stuff going on, and I don't think it retains a lot of that, that gross stink of the New Super series. I think it has a lot of unique level design, and those touchscreen mini games.
Yeah,
I would take a bullet for. You also have multiplayer. You got a big campaign.
Yeah, I feel like New Super Mario Brothers, they came at a time where we thought 2D Mario was pretty much done for. Like, we weren't getting any more 2D Mario. We'd had so much 3D Mario that it seemed like Nintendo was only ever going to just re-release old Mario games to get that kind of classic hit of Mario content. I think that these were fun, when that first time you get that giant mushroom and you go barreling through a stage as Mario and just kicking over warp pipes and stuff, like, that felt great. Those games were so much fun, and they were truly innovative for their time. Like, it was just something we didn't think we'd get out of Nintendo back then. It was one of those rare, unexpected moves from them. I would say that New Super Mario Brothers, the original, is kind of akin to what we're seeing now with Wonder. Like, people were feeling that Mario was getting a little safe, a little stale, and then we got this crazy new 2D Mario game. So I'd have to give it to this, because Mario at his best is some of the best experiences to be had anywhere within gaming. And I think that the original New Super Mario Brothers is a really great distillation of that.
Man, I think you're right. And I think I would pick New Super Mario Brothers over Sonic Generations. Specifically, mainly, it comes down to the touchscreen minigames. Those things are really fun. And Sonic Generations just has Sonic 1 as an unlockable. I think we can make excuses all day when it comes to this. I mean, like, we kind of had to finagle Mario Galaxy out of the running there. Because I do think Mario has the overall quality and the overall, the more important games, but that shouldn't, disparage a lot of these Sonic titles.
Right.
I think a lot of these are amazing games, but I think at the end of the day, especially when it comes to this random list, I think kind of cornered ourselves there with Mario 64 and Mario 1 and Mario Galaxy all at the start. But I have a matchup here that I kind of want to end on here.
Okay.
Mainly because I see this one and I really want to do it. Mario Kart Super Circuit versus Sonic Lost World. Which one wins here?
Oh my god. That is such a weird one.
What are you picking? What are you picking? Because I think Mario Kart Super Circuit at the time was incredible, but why would you play it these days?
Yeah,
there's no reason.
There's
no reason at all.
nothing I'd want to go back to with that game. Some of the best courses are already in other Mario Kart games, and those other Mario Kart games are objectively better.
I wouldn't even say they're necessarily the best courses. I think it's mostly just down to like, oh, the theme here is kind of cool. But it's not even the theme in the game itself that's cool. It's the idea behind it. If you imagine it as a 3D course, it's cool. Like Cheese Land, why would you play Cheese Land in the GBA game? What is the point to that?
Right.
It's about the idea that you're on a cheese-themed track. That's it. It has nothing to do with what the game is actually doing itself. But I love Super Circuit based on nostalgia alone. I never have to play it again. You know, like it was incredible back then. You know, playing that on the GBA, playing that in the car, a Mario Kart on the go, blasphemy. Sonic Lost World, I think it has its fans.
I think so. Sonic Lost World was an interesting game. I think that it kind of felt like they were trying, like they saw Super Mario Galaxy, and were like, hey, let's try something kind of like that. And I have to give it bonus points for having Zelda DLC on the Wii U, because I don't think there's ever been there's never been a Zelda and Sonic crossover before that. And it made no sense at the time, and it continues to make no sense now, but I still love the fact that they did that for whatever reason they chose to. And I would probably choose Sonic Lost World based on just that weird DLC by itself, because I would still go back and check that out for like just the weird comic value of Sonic and Link pairing up for anything. Whereas, like you said, Super Circuit, I don't think I'm ever going to pick that game up again as long as I live.
Get stuck on a desert island with a gun to your head. And you gotta pick what are you going to play for the rest of eternity.
Oh, God.
I think I'd pick Mario Kart. Because as much as this game doesn't age well, I think it's down to something where you can get used to it.
Okay, here's the critical question for me. Do I have a link cable?
No, nobody else is there. You're by yourself.
Player.
I mean, have you played Sonic Lost World recently?
That's fair.
It's not really good.
No, it's not, but neither is Mario Kart Super Circuit. Like, it's okay.
I don't think there's ever been an era where Sonic Lost World was looked at as acceptable. I think Mario Kart Super Circuit has had its time in the sun.
Yeah,
and it's been
fair.
seen as like one of the better Mario Karts for a long while, until I think people started to wake up and they started going like, oh wow, games from 20 years ago may not be as good as some games these days. Not all the time, but just because it was good on the Game Boy Advance doesn't mean it's still amazing today.
I will say that framed that way, if I don't get to play anything else forever, then I'm probably playing Super Circuit, because I can at least have fun with that. I would play Sonic Lost World for, like, the likelihood of me picking up either is pretty slim. The likelihood of me at least picking up Lost World to do a Zelda video exists. But outside of that, then if I had to play one of these games for leisure, then I would probably play Super Circuit.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on here. Lost World is a pretty funky game, and I think it's quality, but I think they had enough weird ideas that didn't work out, and we ended up getting a game that's just kind of a stinker. Well, just a little stinker. Like, it's fine, but it's like I think the best way to describe this game is a little stinker. Mario Kart Super Circuit, I think, was originally one of the coolest things ever. And nowadays, I think you can always look at it with a lot of respect. I don't think you can look at this game and say, wow, this is bad. But I think you can at least look at this and be like, well, this was a Game Boy Advance racing game, and it's good for what that is. But yeah, I think if I had to choose one, I'd pick Mario Kart Super Circuit. Okay, but I lied. Okay, so one more. How about Sonic Frontiers versus NBA Street V3?
Oh man, that's tough. NBA Street, I've played too much of.
The third version?
That was the one with Mario and Peach, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's on this
right,
list.
Right. I played way too much of that because
Man.
Mario and Peach were in it. But I also, like, Sonic Frontiers, I did not love. And I got a lot of backlash for saying I didn't love it. I just felt like it had real,
I think it's
like,
a like.
Unreal
I liked it.
Engine hire this man energy at points.
What about NBA Street doesn't have that? It's Mario next to a bunch of human beings,
Well, that's
human
fair
basketball
too. No,
players.
I would say that of the two, I would definitely play Sonic Frontiers because I actually beat Sonic Frontiers, and I think I played all of 2 hours of NBA Street V3 back in the day. Like, but that was when
Wow.
EA Sports had the weird like Little Mac, like a disturbingly looking Little Mac was in Fight Night, and then we got Mario and Peach in NBA Street. So there was just a weird collab going on there between Nintendo and EA at that time. But I ate it up because I was like, wow, Nintendo's actually letting people do things. So I bought those games like an idiot. But yeah, it's definitely Sonic Frontiers for me because while I bitched and moaned through the later half of Sonic Frontiers, I still finished it.
Well, you heard it here first. Sonic is better.